It's time to call the general government meeting to order. First up, we need approval of the agenda.
Moved.
We have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Move on to item 3, public comment. Is there any public comment out there? Last call for public comment. Okay, no public comment to go through. Item 4, first up, 4A is the minutes from October 7th meeting. If there's not any corrections, I need a motion to approve the minutes. We have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Motion's passed. We'll go to 4B. EG, going to give us a Blackman DDA report. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you. Amy Guerrero, representing the Blackman DDA. We sent you in a report. The highlights, I think, are that the hotels are open, and we've got a combination of 102 rooms in one hotel, 100 in the other hotel. These are the new hotels. And then just a short update. And also, there's a portion of property that the Blackman DDA is in the process of selling to one of the hotels to accommodate their parking needs. And then on the back of the report, you'll notice that Fry Crisp, which is in the Shealy Industrial Park, is doing an expansion. They happen to be in the Blackman DDA, and there are some serious drainage problems out there that have affected their ability to expand. They've got some expansion plans for actually 3 expansions. Their business is very good. They've had to turn away some orders, and the Department of Transportation, JDOT, has worked with them very closely to figure out how to address those needs, and also the Drain Commissioner has. Excuse me. So that's all in the works, but eventually there will be a new sanitary stormwater pipe put in that will drain down near Schwann's, and it should accommodate all of those drainage issues. And also Fry Crisp is making some improvements on their property, but everybody's worked very collaboratively. I know that your administrator was out there visiting the site at one time and was able to see firsthand some of those issues. So at the last Blackman DDA, at the last Blackman DDA meeting, JDOT representatives were there, as well as Fry Crisp and the county, and it's great to see that project able to move forward.
Going to bring more jobs, I assume?
Yes, it will bring more jobs. I don't know exactly how many yet, but right now he's turning away orders. He's also going to build 2 silos there because their business has increased with some larger clients so much that they need a better way to get the flour transported into their building. The FDA does not allow them to store any of their food products off-site, so it's imperative that they expand there. So the airport has already given their okay on the height of the silos because, as you're aware, there's an airport zoning ordinance. So it's a good project.
Lots of activity.
Lots of activity there.
Questions?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate the report. Next up, 4C, equalization, request from Henrietta Township. Welcome.
Welcome. Hello, I'm Jessica Kassler, and I'm with the Equalization Department. I'm here on Ruth Scott's behalf. She's unable to be here today due to a family emergency. So she wanted me to go over the Henrietta Township contract proposal and request with you guys. She submitted everything through board docs. She said most everything is in the personnel report. She wanted me to report that on the proposal for assessing services for Henrietta Township, there is an error on the second page. Under the terms, it's labeled A, terms, and the fee is $16,000 instead of $26,000, and it's correct in the actual contract for the township. And the reason for the error, it was just a typo on her behalf because they started talking back in July, and so she originally put together this proposal for 8 months instead of 4 months. So she just wanted me to let you know that there was an error, but it is actually correct in the full contract.
It's
so the
correct in my paperwork
$16,000
for my
is correct.
computer, too.
What's that?
It's correct in the computer.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay. She might have got it changed then.
Any questions, board? This request? Just need to send it to the full
Well-
board,
Just that
too.
Okay.
Corey?
Mm-hmm.
the expenses exceed the revenues, I'm reading that correctly?
Correct. At this time, they would, because with the contract coming on for Henrietta Township and us needing another staff member, yes. But if you read through there, we have an assessing specialist that was approved by the board. Trying to explain this all here. When we hired that person in, they came in as an equalization technician, which is our lowest grade pay. So we have extra in the budget because we were unable to hire someone qualified for that assessing specialist wage. So they hired in over. So it looks like that it's more, but it's actually there, I guess is the way I need to explain it, as far as in the budget. And then if you read through there, we also have another talks with another township of coming on board in April. So once they were to contract with us, then we would succeed that.
So if the other municipality were to come aboard, we wouldn't be looking at putting additional staff, we would have adequate staff?
We would have adequate staffing at that time, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. We'll go to the full board. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, no problem.
Next up, we have 4Ds, facilities. Welcome, Rick.
Morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. In front of you, you have a request to hire Integrity Interiors of Lansing to add 4 offices to our Public Defenders Building. They were the lowest bid. It's one of these issues where we're adding 4 offices along with the electrical in 3 of them and HVAC as well.
Is this just reconfiguration of the internal building?
It is. And again, this is one of those situations where we've moved quick on this building. We really want to get it in service just as quick as we can. There will be some additional needs. I won't have that, I didn't have that ready for today. It's just something to be mindful of in the future, basically with the entrance doors and the 2 bathrooms. But we're going to self-perform as much of that as we can. So, again, it's, just wanted to let you guys know.
Are we compliant to open the building? We just have to improve the ADA accessibility? Is that what we're looking at?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, and our architect got us the plans today, so we know exactly what we need to do.
Questions, board? Need a motion and support to send this on? We have motion and support. Actually, it's going to, we don't have to send it on. All right, we have motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Passes unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your efforts, Rick.
Thank you, sir.
4E, we have the semi-annual Parks and Fair report. Welcome, Denise.
Good morning.
Here. And welcome, Kyle.
Thank you. I uploaded a narrative report and then the PowerPoint slideshow here too. I'll hit the highlights here if I can get it to open. All right, well, as you know, 2019 is the first year of the 10-year park millage that the voters of Jackson County passed in August of 18. So we've been working on some long-term planning for park improvements, but also doing some improvements here in the short term. Some of the improvements that we've done as far as playgrounds, we've got a lot of equipment that's that's out of date, needed to be replaced, like the lower left picture on this slide, that's Lime Lake County Park. The other two pictures are Pleasant Lake County Park. This is an example of a park that we went in and redid the safety surfacing, added safety surfacing, and redid the borders. So we did that to 7 parks this year, more of our modern playgrounds, just to get them a little bit spruced up and back to being a little safer. We added a new playground at Portage Lake County Park. Portage Lake County Park pretty much was down to 0 playground equipment before this was added. The last of the remaining, the older equipment was removed in the last couple of years due to safety issues. The concrete footings were becoming exposed, and it was time to be replaced. So this was installed in September. It was completed. We did receive a matching donation from one of the park neighbors there. So this is an example of leveraging some millage dollars to stretch it a little further with some private donation. And we've got a similar situation that we're working on at Alfred R. Snyder Park, also known as Horton Mill Pond. We've got a donor in that area that's interested in making a donation towards some playground equipment. So we've got that in the plans, as well as improved parking and some fencing along the body of water there. That would go on the north side of the park. And another project with some private donation to help out is down at Clark Lake County Park. The Clark Lake Community Center, it's managed by a nonprofit 501c3 board. They're putting $100,000 towards a $130,000 picnic structure that would be used for park users as well as the community center. We made some repairs to some of our courts around the park system this year. Pleasant Lake and Sparks Park, they got new new surfacing on the basketball courts, new basketball goals as well. And then Grass Lake, I don't think we actually got that one completed this year. Couldn't get it scheduled, but we're going to be redoing the tennis courts out at Grass Lake County Park in 2020. We added a new restroom to Sparks Foundation County Park. It's a year-round restroom facility there. It's at the corner of Brown and Denton, which is by far our busiest intersection of anywhere in our park system, with the ice cream store there and the playground and people parking to use the trail. So that's been very popular, very good location for that. It basically replaces the porta potties that were there. Also at the falls this year, we replaced the vertical fountain pumps that they basically operate the fountains on the falls there. Those were just, years old and needed to be replaced, basically. Added some new roofs to the buildings at the Cascades this year. The buildings house our admissions, concessions, all the operations for the falls are in there. The flat roofs basically had just had some significant leaking, and we needed to protect the insides of the buildings, and that's all buttoned up and ready for winter this year. A couple of trail projects that we're working on. This project started with a feasibility study in 2017. It led it to this route being determined this year where we could do design engineering on a trail from Monroe up to Cooper and Parnell, so it's all in Blackman Township. The goal with this was basically to get the design far along enough so we could apply for a TAP grant, Transportation Alternatives Program grant. So we partnered with JDOT back in June and put in that application. We should actually be hearing any day now on a funding decision on that project, but we did get some favorable feedback. I think it's looking pretty good.
Kyle,
Yes.
I may ask a question on that trail.
Sure.
And I realize it's outreach still, but have we had conversations with consumers about bringing a connector trail down to Ellsworth from Parnell Road, facility for them, so that way they effectively could travel the trail between both of their operations and never have to be on the street? Have we had that conversation at all?
I don't think we've had that conversation, but that's a good idea. That's something we can talk to them about. Some of this property here, or some of this trail would go on some consumers' property, so we've had lots of discussions with them about that portion. And then on the other side of the county, a feasibility study. This was basically how we started the Blackman Township a couple of years ago. We're starting the same process from Concord to the Calhoun County line, just studying the different opportunities to connect There's about a 2.5 to 3 mile gap between getting this at least planned, and then we'll have a planned trail across the entire county. Both of these trails, that all fits into the Iron Bell Trail, as well as the Great Lake to Lake Trail, a grander vision of connecting South Haven to Port Huron. So Jackson County is right in the hub of that. So this will be great for residents of Jackson County, but we'll also have people on longer distance trail rides going across the county looking for campgrounds and looking for hotels and looking for places to eat. So this project we just kicked off a couple of months ago. It was good timing with Region 2's work on the non-motorized plan that they've been working out. They gave us a little bit of head start on that because they've got some 3 different routes that they kind of already had scoped out a little bit. So we've got some engineers that are looking at those routes now, looking at constructability, safety, recreational value, and the cost to construct it. And they'll put all those into a different scoring system, and we'll come out with a preferred route at the end of this study, which hopefully we can get wrapped up by the end of the year. Another trail project, we partnered with Summit Township this year to resurface the trail along Spring Arbor Road, basically from Lumen Christi to Polly's and up to Cascades Park. It's really used as a connector trail to the park, used a lot by the high school students there for practices and just connecting over to the park. That was completed earlier this fall.
The Spring Arbor Trail, I want commissioners to remember, we stepped up and helped assist with this trail when there were some fatalities of runners being killed on Spring Arbor Road. And the commission and Summit Township stepped up and helped put this in place to protect those. It also helped in the development of the senior center and the housing now that is along Spring Arbor Road and the development of the assisted living complexes. So be aware that the unintended consequences a lot of times of these trails is future residential development. And you can see a lot of it occur, and this is a good trail to look at, to be able to show what happens with development, because we didn't have anything of that development along the south end of Spring Arbor Road before that trail was put in place.
Great points. And then we did some community engagement at 3 different townships this summer. We worked out at Henrietta Township for Pleasant Lake, Napoleon Township for Little Wolf Lake, and down in Columbia Township for Clark Lake. So the goal with these 3 parks was to bring the community together to talk about potential improvements for these 3 parks, basically brainstorming different ideas, no ideas or bad ideas type meeting, and then prioritizing, and the end result is a vision plan for each of these 3 parks. Yeah, question?
I have a question before we get too much further along. The Clark Lake Park, we got the proposal to do the shelter and all. Has the shoreline been stabilized there yet? There was an issue with, we had to stabilize the shoreline.
Yeah, that's something that came out of this meeting, something that, one of the projects that we're looking at is the shoreline.
Oh, is that included in the plans for improvement then?
Yeah, we got to do something with where the fence is at and stabilizing the shoreline there.
Yeah, well, there's no, I mean, if we're going to build the picnic shelter, we need the shoreline stabilized.
Yeah, the picnic
kind of go
shelter
hand in
is higher and higher ground away from the shoreline, but that project, though, is something that needs.
All right, thank you.
Another project, just a safety feature, we needed to replace the driving range net at Cascades Park this year. A lot of walkers and park users basically walk behind here, so it was a safety feature to get that replaced. Event center project is rolling along. Construction is still on schedule to be completed by, mid-February is the date of occupancy for us. The first show is scheduled for late February, the Home Builders Show. So we're actively working on recruiting events. We're taking all kinds of bookings right now. And we're working on planning our own events, which is what one of Denise's big charges now is. We've talked a lot about being our own best customer, so we're working all sorts of on events that we're going to plan in-house to fill the dates and help with the revenue. And I'll have Denise cover the fair.
Good morning. every year I do this, and I kind of glorify myself in having all these great memories of the fair, which was fantastic this year. But the first thing that we did before the fair even kicked off, we updated our logo. I don't know if you noticed that, but had some considerable conversation and came up with this beautiful logo, which I think encompasses the whole vision of the fair. And obviously, the transformation. I put these slides together in case any of you didn't drive by and remember the progression. Obviously, up in the upper left was the visualization that Smith Group had for us, and I think they pretty well nailed it when it got done. If you go to look at the actual live photos, you'll see that. But as you can see, this spring was not a friend of ours with all of the rain that we got. And even after fair, the aerial shots that I looked at, now on ground level, because we progressed so fast and so beautifully, that I was stunned when people said, oh my gosh, there's so much dirt. And I'm thinking, oh, there's a lot of concrete. There's really not a lot of dirt. Yes, there was a lot of dirt. So obviously grass could not grow that quickly. So we finally did get some nice days, and things moved along quite quickly. We were anxious to get some hard surface in, and that's really what we were all looking forward to seeing. And so by the end of June, we started to get some hard surface, and then then we'd have rain again. But when the asphalt went in, we were actually 26 days away from fair. I had no sleep from June to August. Then by late July, they got the midway place in, so you can kind of see the light dirt pass. That's the actual midway. And some, until you actually live through the fair, you see it, it's laid out, it sounds good on paper, but until you're actually there, we went along, had 3 great shows in the grandstand, but then it became rodeo night. Oh my word, where are we putting all those big horse trailers? And all of us, and actually I should insert the fact that without we don't separate them anymore, but without the parks folks that came on board with fair, it was a tremendous help to have those guys there to also put new eyes on it. So I want to make sure to put a plug in there. We don't refer to ourselves as the fair people and the parks people anymore. So I'll try not to do that again before the end of the presentation. But we walked to the north end, and we're like, oh, we can do this. And as you can see down on the right, early on Friday, they actually bring rodeo folks in that actually compete for a position in that night's rodeo. So we're thankful, but as you can see, they're not little horse trailers. I mean, these are semis, and these are pieces of equipment that hold multiple horses. We did find a place for them, and everybody was happy. But about 2 hours before rodeo time, most of those trailers are gone. So it worked out great. And the same situation was with Demolition Derby night, because we get a lot of cars that come in on trailers, and we fit them in. So I'll pretend like we had planned it that way, but we really didn't, but it worked out. So then after we got through a successful fair week, then we even were, confident enough to put on a outdoor concert. Well, we didn't. We partnered with the gentleman, the promoter that did that, and it really worked out really well. But we kind of wanted to show ourselves that, yeah, this is exactly what we put this configuration together, is to be able to hold festivals, days-long festivals, that type of thing. And with our infield opened up, it really was, it was beautiful. So I foresee many of those coming in the future. Oh, did I go the wrong way? Maybe I did, sorry. All right, so 2019 fair is done, and we worked really hard to get the grounds ready. I say we, I wasn't out there digging shovels of mud, but I was out there with a twisted eye going, oh my gosh. But I'll tell you, every one of those contractors and all of our employees, they were confident that it would get done, and it did, and it turned out beautifully. You can see, though, our attendance was down a little bit this year, and I think a lot of that was because we fielded, and maybe you guys did too, so many questions. Will there be a fair? I mean, 2 weeks before the fair, you could look on the grounds and you were still questioning. I believe that had a lot to do with the fact that, our attendance was down a little bit. However, 2019 hosted the first sold-out show that I personally have had in the grandstands. So people that did come on the grounds, we're there for a couple of reasons. One, to see one of our great shows, but two, to see the layout. And other than our food concessionaires that were very nervous a couple of days before fair and as they were setting up, they just couldn't see how their new locations were going to be a positive. People were excited about the layout. We went through, most of my staff made a point to go through on a daily basis, talk to the patrons. Every single one of them, probably except one or two, were in love with the new layout. Yes, and we had some things that weren't quite finished yet, so this year, when we actually go into, well, we're already in the prepping stages for 2020 fair, but there's going to be a lot of new changes too, because we have a real good connector between the food court and the Gumper building. It had no concrete, no walkway. That was problematic. Folks that had mobility issues had some difficulty there. So, and we were aware of that one day into the fair, and then, of course, Tuesday when we got the rain, we did. So that was problematic, but that's now all taken care of. If you happen to swing down in there, the fairgrounds, pretty much, I believe, I shouldn't speak for Jeff, but I do believe that most of the concrete work is done. So we're excited about what that means for the north end of the grounds and accessibility to the south end. And speaking of that, the folks that came to the fair and parked in our beautiful new parking lot, which 90% of those folks thought it was very cool, never been in that area before, really thought it worked out well. We had 6 shuttles, which was 4 more than I normally ever have, so that was a benefit to those folks that were concerned about getting from the parking lot to the grounds, which, you know, is a block, but it's beautiful river walkway there, and a lot of folks enjoyed that. But it allowed people to go to the north end of the grounds, which a lot of fair folks don't necessarily make it down to the north end where the agriculture, you know, where those kids work hard all year to show off their animals, that type of thing. And our ag people loved it. I even had a number of 4-H parents, leaders that drove my shuttle, that were volunteers for the shuttle, something they had never done before, and they had a chance to talk to fair patrons, and they had a new appreciation. So I was excited about that part, that it really allowed both sides of the fairgrounds to meet in the middle, and we're excited about what we had done. And this is just to show what the shows were. Obviously, we ended it on a high note with Foreigner and Styx. My only problem that I had heard, that I had some folks that were there to see Foreigner, which went on first, and because we had so many people in line with the way that our gate system was set up, it took them a little longer, and they missed the first song of Foreigner. We've resolved that now since, so. And these are just some of the additional things. I'm sure all of you were down to the fair probably multiple times, but if you didn't have a chance to go to some of the events, I don't know if anyone saw the picture that the young man, the speed painter, did, Evan Strunk from Western High. He did a painting of Foreigner, and it was fabulous. But fun things like that. So that's it. I do want to, there was one more note that I wanted to, that for 2020, we're going to be branding that as our grand opening. And we're also, I don't know if you guys are aware, but our grandstands is 100 years old. So we've got some great branding and some great things coming down that's going to showcase the fact that our grandstands is 100 years old. And there's not many covered grandstands in the state of Michigan. So it's actually, Facilities a number of years ago did a study on that building. That building will stand another 100 years, according to what, they had stated. And, we know that it's going to be there way beyond our time here. So we're excited about that. So, any questions?
First of all, hi, and thanks. I was at the fair a couple nights, and you guys did do a great job. We did mention that attendance was slightly down, though, and that's unfortunate. And I didn't hear anybody mention that the unfortunate incidents of violence, I think that could have played a role. In fact, I know it did out in my community, where people said after they had heard about it happening, they just weren't going to go. And I'm wondering if we are currently, and if we're not, if there's plans to start working on a strategic action plan of how we're going to prevent it, but also when it occurs, how we're going to react to it appropriately. Because the way it went, this particular incident went down, I think we can all agree was not good, and then it kind of spilled out into the city streets too.
Yeah, and actually, just like anything else, a lot of pieces to that story grew over when it happened, so there wasn't a lot of truth to what actually came out of it. We did have a scuffle on the Midway, there's no doubt about that. The gunfire was not on our grounds, but it was in the city streets. And Ganson Street did have, and every year we have a little bit of an issue. But in regards to an action plan for next year, yes, there are. The Fair Board will actually start looking at some of the new policy changes that we would like to make actually coming up before the end of the year. So there are some things that are in the works. We've had a couple of meetings with our internal team, about 25 folks that are anywhere from folks that work backstage to our grounds people. And, the boots on the grounds actually is what I'm referring to. And so some really good stuff came out of that. But to answer your question, yes, we do have some things in the works that we plan to implement that I believe will be certainly a good start.
Guess everybody's bewildered and impressed with your report, and no questions. Nice report, guys. Thank you. Oh, boy. Next up, we have finance. Didn't mean to delay you, I lost my computer page.
You're fine.
Welcome, Cecilia.
Good morning. So in front of you, you do have September's financial statements, and as you can see, our benchmark for September is 75%. Our expenditures are below that benchmark at 74.2%, which is good. And as you can also see, our revenues are also above the 75%, and that's just because our property taxes have started to come in. We had a due date of 9/15. So very pleased with how September's look based on the benchmarks. And if, I'm sure you've had time to look at it. If there are any questions that maybe I can help answer regarding September's financial statements.
Questions? Discussion? Bye.
All right.
We're set. Thank you for your report, Cecilia.
All right. I think I'm next.
Oh, wait a minute, you have another item here.
I do.
Yes, let me go
So
ahead.
in front of you are the budget amendments that are required in order to be in compliance with the state. It does affect all funds and all of our general fund departments, so it's just something that we do every year. So I didn't know if there was any questions that you might have on those.
Real straightforward. Any questions, board? Okay, I need a motion and support to send the budget amendments to the full board.
All right.
Motion and support, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Passes unanimously. Move ahead to 4H, Administrator Controller, policy update. Deb? Mike?
As we continue to go through our policies, we're focusing on some HR ones, so you'll see in the next couple months some HR policies coming through. But again, this is just a continuation of our ongoing review of county policies to make sure that they're current. This one had a few minor changes. That's it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Chairman Shotwell.
Deborah, typically at the bottom of the document, we've got dates on when things were reviewed. I don't see those at all on the bottom of these policies. I'm looking at page 2 of, excuse me, that's the recommendation. I apologize. I'm looking at. Just want to make sure we've got the highlighted information at the bottom of each one of the policies so we know when we did it.
Discussion, board? Motion and support to send us forward? We have motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Move on to item 5, other business. Need a motion and support to pay the claims. We have motion support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. 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 Passes unanimously. Other minutes, there are none. December reporting schedule, there for your viewing. We have treasurer report, IT semi-annual, and equalization semi-annually coming up next month.
To be a war.
We're on to item 6, we return to public comment. Any public comment?
Probably are, I'm not questioning that, I'm just saying that we,
Committee member comment.
Joni used to grieve constantly for
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.